He's a beat reporter for the 24/7 Sports Network, part of Cat's Paws, and also co-host of the Kentucky Daily Podcast, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. That is Derek Terry. Derek, how you doing, man?
Doing well. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm doing pretty darn well on a Saturday. Obviously, we got college football getting ready to start up in just a little while. But just what has this last week been like for the Wildcats? Because you pull off a massive upset against Dan Mullen and the Florida Gators, and the vibe just changes virtually overnight where like people are going crazy. Waka Flocka Flames out there celebrating. We're probably talking about that a little bit more later. But how much has the vibe changed in Lexington, a school that's definitely traditionally a lot more of a college basketball program, but looks like this football team's starting to make a little bit more waves?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think there has been a feeling within the UK's program that they should have been beating Florida more than what they have been. You go back to 2017 and 2019, and UK was up double digits in the fourth quarter, both those games against the Gators, and backup quarterbacks in both instances. So especially 2019, Kyle Trask kind of he came onto the scene that game. He came in and led a fourth quarter comeback. So, I think around here in the preseason I'm not going to say they're meeting expectations. They're probably, I don't know that I would have had them starting 5-0, but I think everyone felt like there was a good chance they would beat Missouri and South Carolina. So I would say that mostly the season's kind of lining up the way that people had hoped that it would. Maybe not the way that they expected it to. I don't know that. I mean, listen, when you've not beat a team like Florida at home since 1986, I don't know that you ever really go in thinking you're going to win. But now that that's kind of been lifted from the program, yeah, I mean, I think people are absolutely excited. I think to follow up a game against Florida with a traditional power like LSU, you have Keeneland. The races they've started up this weekend. It's going to be you got a night game, 7:30 Eastern. I mean, people are fired up for sure.
And how big is that? I know you part of 24/7 Sports, so you definitely cover a lot more of the recruiting perspective. How much has that kind of gotten into some of these recruits and these targets that Kentucky wants to be like, hey, look at what we just did. Look at what we're starting to build here. Because Mark Stoops, I think, is starting to build a lot of momentum. He's been slowly getting towards that direction. But how huge was that to kind of really put that feather in the cap? Because we look back from the LSU perspective, after that Georgia game, you get somebody like John Emery Jr. to basically flip his commitment overnight after the way LSU manhandled Georgia. Being able to see, like, let's say you had some recruits visit over there last week and they saw that performance like, I want to be part of this.
Yeah, that's already happened. 2023 running back, Caden Mormon, he's a 3-star. He's a local kid. He's from Frankfort, which is just right down the road from Lexington. He set his commitment date. There wasn't really any kind of drama with it, and he committed yesterday. And there's, once this happened a little bit in 2020. It was the 2020 recruiting class, but it was the 2018 season that laid a lot of groundwork for that. But, you had guys that visited for the Florida game back in 2019. I said the 2018 season, I meant 2019. 2020 was their best recruiting class ever, and a lot of the guys who were there, that was after UK won 10 games in 2018. They played Florida early in the year. They didn't win that game, but it was a great environment, and it kind of laid the groundwork. So I think for this class, with Kentucky off to a 5-0 start, there's already been two names that popped up. 4-star linebacker Daniel Martin, he's from Georgia. I don't know that UK necessarily has an end there, but they've done a pretty good job historically with Georgia linebackers. Jamin Davis last year just went in the first round. Bud Dupree from a few years back, if you remember him. I think he plays for the Titans now. He was another Georgia linebacker, so they're trying to sell that. And, I don't know if they really have a great shot at this kid, but Sam McCall, who is a top 50 player, committed to Florida State, told 24/7 yesterday that he's going to try to get up and visit UK, that he had plans to. And there was some scuttlebutt that there's going to be a big visitor today. I don't know if it's going to be him or not. But, yeah, it obviously makes it a lot easier to get these really talented kids on campus whenever you can beat teams like Florida and then, a chance to come in and watch UK play, but not just UK. You get to watch them play an opponent like LSU. I think that helps a lot.
Talking now, Derek Kelly, Cat's Paws, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. And one of the big things that I've been able to take away from watching some film this week was the challenge I think Wandale Robinson is going to present. He's squaring up against an LSU secondary that allowed Bo Nix to just throw all over the place and currently leading the SEC in receiving yards through 5 games. What kind of challenge is he going to present?
Well, he's a great player. He really is. I mean, in terms of a dynamic playmaker, he's about as good as I've seen at UK over the last few years. Lynn Bowden was very good, but they're a little bit different. You know, Bowden was 6'1", 6'2", whatever, and Wandell's a kind of small, shifty. Very doesn't have like elite top end speed, but is the kind of guy that I don't know if you saw a screen pass touchdown against Florida last week. I mean, it was he caught it, some pretty quick juke moves, and he was gone. Made a couple of guys miss there at the end. The problem for UK is he is pretty much the only real wide receiver threat. Who you would consider to be the number 2 guy, Josh Ali, he's out this week with a knee injury, so he's not playing. So, with this offense, with Liam Cohen coming in, there was thought that the tight ends would be a big part. They've really not been in the passing game, but really no one outside of Wandell has been. I mean, Will Levis has gotten the ball to him a lot. I think he obviously gets open more than the other guys because he's much better than the other wide receivers on UK's roster. So I'll be curious. I mean, I think the supporting cast for LSU's offense at wide receiver is definitely better, but it's similar to me just on paper looking like Butte is for sure the best player in that wide receiver group. And if you're UK, like you want to do everything you can for Butte to not be the guy that beats you. And I think for LSU's defense, it probably needs to be the same way. If you're going to lose to Kentucky tonight, don't let it be because Wandell Robinson had a big night.
And, obviously we're talking about the wide receiver core. I think we need to kind of flip it over to the guys in the run game. Chris Rodriguez has been the bell cow for this program. How do you think he'll be a critical role in tonight's contest?
Yeah, he's been very good. He's had some fumble issues this year, which he had a tad bit at the beginning of his freshman year, and then he didn't have a fumble for a very long time. And then this year, he put it on the ground twice against South Carolina. They recovered both times, which was good for him, I guess. But whenever he's holding on to the football and he's running downhill, I mean, he's a tough back. He's the kind of guy that, he's not someone who's going to outrun a lot of defenses. He's not someone who's going to, be real shifty, but he's kind of got weighs on you over a game, I think, when he's getting the ball 20-something times and he's hitting guys over and over. I mean, I think he's someone that as the game goes on gets a little bit better. And Cavassier Smoke is their backup. He's been pretty solid in that backup role. He's someone who is a little shiftier, maybe a little bit more top-end speed, but still not someone you would consider a burner. But one guy I'll be curious to see if he gets more involved this week is Jatan McClain, who was suspended the first 4 games. He was part of a legal investigation. Those charges got dropped a couple weeks ago. They only had him in for one offensive play against Florida, but he was someone in the preseason who was involved in a lot of their offense. So I'll be curious. I kind of feel like, especially with Josh Ali out, that you're going to see him have a much bigger role tonight. And he's kind of a running back / wide receiver type. He's pretty versatile.
Talking right now with Dare Terry, part of the Cat's Paws webpage, is part of 24/7 Sports, also hosts the Kentucky Daily Podcast, part of Blue Wire's podcast network. And, obviously one of the big storylines heading into this game is obviously, you have former linebacker Dare Rosenthal transferring from LSU to Kentucky. Now he's going to be playing against his former team just a few months removed from all the stuff that he was dealing with behind the scenes. How excited is he to kind of be able to play against his former team?
Well, he was pretty coy about it this week. I mean, I think it's the first time. Obviously, the COVID things have been different. We're still doing interviews in person, but it's a little bit more limited than what it used to be pre-pandemic. But I want to say that was the first time that I can remember talking to him, and he was pretty quiet. Didn't really, he certainly didn't have any kind of bulletin board material. He was something very respectful. I mean, it sounds, and you guys might even know more than me about that departure from LSU, but it all sounded very professional on everybody's end. I mean, it doesn't sound like there was really any bad blood there. So I'm sure a lot of those guys that he'll be playing against this weekend are still some of his best friends. But with that said, he's a, Louisiana kid playing against a school that he used to play for. I'm sure there's definitely some motivation there to come out and play well against those guys. But he's been pretty good for UK this year. Got banged up a little bit against South Carolina, but finished up the game and came back out last week and did a pretty good job. So he was someone that, Kentucky has Darian Kennard, who a lot of people think will be, I think he's probably in that top 60 pick range this year, who was going to play left tackle, but Dare came in and his experience at LSU playing left tackle, I think, helped him a lot, and it was pretty clear that he was the better choice there. So adding him to this team definitely strengthened the position that I would say was already a strength for this team. But he's been a really good addition, and he's someone who, like Kelvin Joseph last year, comes in and has certainly made the team better.
Hey, we're talking about the defense. Might as well flip over to that because, you might be surprised, the listeners at home who haven't necessarily paid a lot of attention to just SEC wide. But I was looking it up before the show just to make sure of this. But Kentucky's ranked currently third in the SEC in total defense. But you got to remember, over the last 4 years, they've been a team that's consistently in the top 4 in total defense. What's been the key for their success under Mark Stoops?
Well, going back to 2018, that defense was, that was one of the ones that you could say they had the luxury of having, a lot of high-end college talent, NFL talent too. I mean, Mike Edwards was a safety on that team. They were an old defense too in 2018. I mean, they had guys who had gone through those struggles early in their careers, and Josh Allen was obviously a top 10 pick. Mike Edwards, Lonnie Johnson, a cornerback, all those guys were top 3 round draft picks. So they had really good talent on that team. And then 2019, it was kind of the bridge year. And what they really made an emphasis of that year, I think the stats got skewed a little bit because it was one of those weird years where they played in a lot of bad weather games. I want to say it rained in 4 of their games that year, which I can't even really remember it raining in one game a lot of the other seasons. So the passing numbers that year, I think, probably looked better than what they really were. And it took a dip last year. But this year, and what they've done under Brad White and Mark Stoops, is they've done a great job not allowing big plays. I think I saw a stat, they've only allowed 1 play this year for more than 30 yards through the air. And with LSU, I know that's it's a big part of their offense is hitting the deep ball because, they've struggled to run the ball this year, but connecting on deep shots through the air, it's something that's been really important for that offense. So that's going to be a really interesting thing to me. In terms of the run game, I would say something to watch if you're an LSU fan. I know that they still want to have a commitment to running the ball, and for Kentucky, Marquand McCall, their senior nose guard, which in this 3-4 defense is one of the most important positions because they occupy space. They let the linebackers come through and make plays. He's out. He had an injury against Florida. He's out for, at least a month, I think, if not longer. So you have 2 guys, 2 sophomores, Josiah Hayes, who is from Mississippi. He was an Ole Miss commit before he flipped to UK, and then Justin Rogers, who is the highest-ranked player on the team. He was 5-star kid on Rivals. He's a high 4-star with us on 24/7. He was, when he committed to UK, the 3rd highest-ranked player ever to sign with Kentucky. So he's a highly rated recruit. So that's kind of the one position that up here a lot of people are talking about because I think for a lot of people it's kind of the sign of growth in recruiting that you could lose your senior nose guard and the guys that are there to step up are both high 4-star kids. So I will be interested, though, because it's their first start, seeing how they kind of respond to an LSU team that I'm sure is going to want to at least establish the run.
All right. I got one more for you about the actual game, then we'll get to something else a little fun to end it. How do you see this contest going for the Wildcats? And if you feel emboldened enough, what's your prediction?
I'll pick the UK win, but sorry, I said to my cat just then. I don't know if I heard that. I picked the UK win, but I don't know that I feel great about it. I don't really know how it's going to go. I'm not really buying into this emotional letdown that I think some people are saying after the Florida win. Because deep down, like I said, I really think that there had been a thought within that program that they should have been beating Florida anyway. So I don't necessarily view it as some huge upset last weekend. Was it an upset? Sure. Florida looked really good against Alabama. That was the only time that they had lost. But UK found a way. But, I feel like they thought that they should have been winning those games regardless. But with LSU, just from what I've read, it seems like going to be a pretty desperate team for Orgeron. I think that part of it would make you feel a little uneasy. I think I saw a stat. There's something like 16-1 coming off of a loss under Orgeron. So, you got to pay attention to those stats. But I don't know. Kentucky's passing game, I think if they can get it figured out, I think if they can establish the run, they got a great chance. But I picked the UK win, but I don't necessarily feel great about it.
And the last thing I want to kind of get to is you had a recent episode of your Kentucky Daily podcast, and this time I didn't realize. I was wondering what the connection was with Waka Flocka Flame why he was out there celebrating, out there enjoying himself at a Kentucky game. Little did I know, a Lexington native actually helped mix and record Grove Street Party, which we've heard at one point or another in any college football stadium across the country. I know I've heard it about 50,000 times at Cajun Field, and I never get tired of it.
Yeah. I mean, that was a connection I didn't even know about until last Saturday. I mean, it was like funny to me that, I mean, they had Waka Flocka out there with the tunnel, you know, when that song came on. He kind of led the team out, which was, yeah, I think Waka Flocka is I think he's a Georgia guy. I mean, he's a pretty big Bulldogs. And so, you know, I don't know what, you know, his name is Finest White, who helped produce the song. He grew up in Lexington, big UK fan. And, you know, he said he's been trying to get Waka to go up there because, you know, that song, it's kind of like you said, it's played everywhere, but for whatever reason, it really became like an anthem for UK football in 2014. And people really picked up on it. When they made it to the Citrus Bowl a few years ago, that's what they ran out of the tunnel. So, you know, I think that Finest had been telling Waka that it was a pretty big deal up there, and he should go check it out. And I guess he got the chance to. And I would say for him, I mean, it kind of lined up perfectly because they pull the upset, fans storm the field, and he's just kind of out there partying with them. So I'm sure it was a pretty cool memory for him. I'd say it was a cool memory for the players to have. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of funny how it all came together because you know, I couldn't explain to you why that song became such a big deal for UK fans. But I guess it's kind of the thing with a lot of traditions; they just kind of happen, and people pick up on it and they go from there.
It's not like Jump Around. It's House of Pain based out of Boston, and yet it just caught on in Wisconsin. But thank you so much, my man, for coming on. We'll talk to you down the road. Enjoy the game tonight.
All right. Thanks for having me. I'll see you later.